Today we're going to be going over how to set up your sewing machine so that you are ready to start sewing. I'm going to walk you through every step of the way, step by step, so that you do not get lost. We're going to be going over how to wind and load your bobbin, how to thread your machine, change your sewing needle, and change your presser foot, or just install one in general if you don't have one in there already. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for being here and thank you for your patience with this video. Obviously, a lot of time has passed in between my very first video and this video today. There were a lot of developments in Meet the Future of Sewing. I wrote a book and I also launched a course. The book teaches you how to hand sew and the course teaches you how to both hand and machine sew. This is the book. This is the right-handed version of the book. I also released a left-handed version. If you watch any of my short form content and you see me sewing on pieces of paper, it is from this workbook that I wrote for my brother to teach him how to hand sew. And in the back are sewing cards that you can cut out, fold, and prep so that you can sew directly on them before you move on to fabric. So this is an example of the sewing guide after it's fully prepped. So it's obviously cut out. I have folded it and I punched it out using a sewing needle. I've used this to demonstrate tons and tons and tons of times. And each stitch comes with a briefing on the stitch, best application use cases, and then once you actually finish sewing, there is an answer key here where you can compare the finished stitch. Once you finish sewing it, you can store it in the plastic pocket here. Here's a finished example of the back stitch. I also wrote a left-handed version of the workbook. Super controversial apparently, but basically all of the numbering on the sewing cards is mirrored so that it's easier for a left-handed person to follow. If you're just getting started on hand sewing, this is definitely where I would recommend you to get started. However, if you are trying to learn how to hand and machine sew and really get a good understanding of everything to really prepare you how to sew, I would go with my course because my course is a lot more in depth and actually goes over everything that you need to know. I purposely go over everything that I see missing on just YouTube because it's just too hard. You need to be able to have access to information that you can actually look over time and time again. Listen, I don't want to hate on YouTube videos. I'm clearly making it and adding to the ecosystem of things that you're going to be able to access for free, but there is value in being able to have everything all together in one place for you to go to at your leisure and in different forms. I purposely made my online course multimedia, and by that I mean it's written in text. I have voice recording so you don't have to read if you don't like reading. I have pictures, I have diagrams that you can click through. I have videos on there. I have printouts. There's just a lot of different points of contact that you need to have with this information in order to really absorb everything. I go over fabrics. I go over the differences between knits, wovens, how to choose fabrics, like what qualities to look for when you're choosing fabrics for your project so that you know what you're looking for when you're choosing fabric for your project. Then we go into what a seam is, the anatomy of a seam, seam allowance. I go over the differences of hand and machine sewing and the different use cases for both, the pros and cons of each of the tactics. I go over different sewing in general so you can see what the possibilities are in sewing. I give a full breakdown of what the sewing process looks like, which is a huge missing component that I see on the internet or don't see on the internet. I go over how to set up your sewing space. Even if you're just working with what you have, I walk you through every single point of the machine, what it does, and I love that I had interactive PDFs on there. You could click on a part of the machine, it'll take you to a blow up of just that part of the machine and describe its exact function, and then you can go back. I'll have like a pop-up here so that I can demonstrate what I mean by that. I have the same interactive PDFs for my toolbox. I don't go over every single tool that I own, but I do go over what I deem to be the essentials. And even then, you don't need to get every single thing that I list in there. You can really just, like I said, use what you have. After we cover all of that information that builds a strong foundation and understanding, I then take you through how to sew your first stitches. After we sew your first stitches by hand and machine, then we go into your first projects. And the way that I have it set up for module 4 and 5 is that there's two different tracks. There's a hand sewing track and a machine sewing track. In the hand sewing track, you'll be sewing a fabric coaster, and for the machine sewing track, it's fabric coasters and a heating pad. And without further ado, let's get started. The steps that I'm walking you through today don't all need to be done in chronological order, but I purposely go over how to change a needle and presser foot first as a safety measure. You want to avoid changing your sewing needle or presser foot while your machine's power is on because it could be incredibly dangerous if you accidentally run your machine while doing them. To get started, if you already have a needle in the machine, you're going to hold onto the needle while you use a flathead flathead screwdriver to loosen the screw. Once you feel that the needle is loose, you can remove it. Then you're going to take your new needle, making sure that the flat side is facing away from you, and insert it in place of where the old needle was. Make sure it's inserted all the way before you tighten the screw to secure the needle into place. Now that your needle is installed, I'm going to show you how to change or attach a presser foot. First, we're going to raise our presser foot using the presser foot lever, which is this gray lever here. Every machine is different, but for most modern home sewing machines, there's typically a button that will release the presser foot. Then to attach a presser foot, all you have to do is align the presser foot, then lower the presser foot lever. I like to hold down the presser foot release button in the back so that it's a bit more gentle. Once you've got your needle and presser foot installed, you're ready to start plugging your cords in. You're going to need to plug two things into your machine. The first is your power cord, which is what gives your machine the power to run, and the second cord you plug in is going to be your foot pedal, which is what's going to allow you to run your machine. After our machine is plugged in, we can switch on the power using the power switch. Now that we're connected to power and our machine is on, we can wind our bobbin. To do this, we're going to place a spool of thread onto our spool pin, secure it in place with our spool cap. Then we're going to guide our thread through the upper thread guide, around the secondary guide, then bring our thread through the bobbin winder tension disc. You can usually hear it either have a faint click into place or at least feel the thread as it slips in between the tension disc. You'll know you did it correctly when there's more tension when you tug on the thread. Then you can take an empty bobbin and thread the bobbin through the top hole and wrap thread around the bobbin a couple of times before you place the bobbin onto the bobbin winder spindle. Then you can shift the spindle to the right. Hold the thread tail just as you first start winding your bobbin. We're going to apply some pressure onto our foot pedal to start winding our bobbin. Once we've gotten the bobbin winding process started and there's enough thread on the bobbin to hold the rest of the thread in place, we're going to trim the tail. Then we're going to continue applying pressure to our foot pedal to finish winding our bobbin. Your machine will automatically stop winding the bobbin once it's full. Then we can shift the bobbin winder spindle to the left and trim the thread. Now that our bobbin is wound, we can load our bobbin into our machine. I'm demonstrating this on a top loading machine, which means that the bobbin is inserted from the top. Top loading machines typically do not require a bobbin case since the bobbin case is built into the machine. But if you're using a front loading machine, you'll need to use a bobbin case. Regardless of whether you're using a bobbin case or the machine has one that's built in, you need to make sure that you're placing the bobbin in the correct direction so that the thread can have proper tension. We're going to start off by opening the bobbin compartment using the bobbin cover release button. Then we're going to make sure that the thread tail of our bobbin forms the letter P. Now we can place the bobbin into our bobbin compartment. Then we're going to bring the thread tail around the guides all the way up and around so that it can be trimmed at the surface. Now that our bobbin is in, we can replace the bobbin cover plate. Now that your bobbin is loaded, you can thread your machine. Be sure that your presser foot and needle are raised before you thread your machine. To thread our machine, we're going to place a spool of thread onto our spool pin, secure it in place with our spool cap, then we're going to guide our thread through the upper thread guide, then guide it around the take-up lever, then tuck the thread behind the needle bar thread guide, then we can finally thread the eye of the machine's needle. Now all you have to do is turn your hand wheel towards you to bring your bobbin thread up onto the surface. I'm showing you this process nice and slow because I want you to see through my bobbin cover plate. And notice that the bobbin is turning so that the bobbin thread can catch and loop around the top thread, which is what brings it up onto the surface of the machine when you continue to turn your hand wheel. Once you have two tail threads coming up onto the surface of your machine is now fully threaded and ready for you to start sewing. If you made it this far, thank you so much for being here and for watching. I am so honored, honestly, to have so many of you here and to trust me with a learning journey like this. I know that it could be really vulnerable learning anything new because a lot of us just go through a lot when we're younger, when we're learning stuff, and we've put so much pressure on ourselves that learning anything and being bad at something when we're first starting is just really daunting. So I appreciate you for letting me play a role in this. It's been incredibly rewarding to hear all of your stories with learning how to sew, and it's wild to me how many people actually see me and my content either on here, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook is a recent development, and it's thank you. I don't know if I'll ever find the words to fully be able to communicate my gratitude because without all of you here, just being here and watching is letting me do what I get to do every single day as a way to sustain and live, and it's been an honor. It means a lot to me to be able to have an impact on other people's lives and to be able to positively influence anything, even if it's just sewing. It means a lot. It means a lot to me to be able to connect with people in this way, and social media really has changed my life, and you are the reason for that. I have so much sewing information that I want to share with you, and I'm not entirely sure just yet how I want to format it on YouTube. So if you have any urgent burning desires of what you would like to see on here, please comment and let me know so that I can maybe change my direction accordingly and provide the most value. From here on out, I'm going to be posting every single Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and next week I'm going to be going over what sewing even is. In the meantime, I will also be posting YouTube shorts, and you can also find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next Friday. Bye!